Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Well, it turns out being hysterically anti American was a very stupid idea on Mark Carney and the Liberal Party's part, because now Canada is in a situation where, although many of the tariffs on the rest of the world have gone away, Canada is now in timeout with China because we put reciprocal tariffs on the United States rather than just negotiating. Do I like the tactics that Trump used around his trade war efforts to try and lower tariffs? No, it was a bit aggressive. At the same time, I would inform Mark Carney and the Liberal government that we're Canada and they're the United States. I am a Canadian patriot, but even I can look at our population numbers, compare them to the United States, realize that even each American is making more money than each Canadian before currency conversion, and understand that we're not going to be able to beat them in a trade war standoff. But they tried it, and now we look like a bunch of morons. And now Mark Carney's having to run away from the press, having no ability to justify what he's been doing or how he's going to pivot from here. Anyways, before I get into it, guys, I just want to remind you to like the video if you've been liking my federal election coverage, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet a subscriber, and leave a comment on the video on the topic of the day. I always like to scroll through and see what people are saying. I try and comment back at a good amount of people, but when there's like 1,200 comments, oftentimes I scroll through and I find ones that are easier for me to answer. Like if someone's asking me for a dissertation, probably won't type that out, but if it's simpler stuff, I definitely will try to. Anyways, here's a video that the conservatives actually had compiled of Mark Carney when he was taking that day off of the campaign trail, running away from the media as they asked him about the trade war going on.
So that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay. Reporters trying to get more questions in and hoping answers will come, but very few did.
Prime Minister.
And let's be very clear, too. He took the day off because he apparently had pressing prime ministerial stuff to do. And then he gets to Ottawa and he's apparently not doing anything because he was obviously just taking a break from the campaign trail because he's bad at campaigning. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place now. Does he want to admit that he doesn't have anything going on because he just wanted the break from the campaign trail? Or does he actually say he's working on stuff, but then not be able to give anyone detail because he doesn't have anything? Or he'd have to admit that he actually put Canada in a really bad negotiating position with the United States by being like the only country on the planet to align itself with China. Maybe Macau is with China, but if anyone is siding with China on the trade war, it's going to be basically just very close Southeast Asian or I guess East Asian allied states or something like that, and that's it.
Didn't provide much of an update. Canada still faces U.S. tariffs on steel, aluminum, and autos, and is retaliating. Nothing changed for Canada when Donald Trump paused global reciprocal tariffs earlier this week.
Canada's tariff situation remained unchanged, and Prime Minister Carney had nothing to say about any changes to Canada's counter-tariff strategy.
We were hoping for so much more from Mark Carney, but remind us, what did we just hear?
I am struck by his not taking questions.
No questions were taken today. Now, Liberals will tell you that they like it when Carney gets to play the role of prime minister rather than campaigning leader. And
around the same time that Mark Carney left without taking questions, a GM plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, was pausing production, citing slumping sales.
And this is why Mark Carney put us in this position. When he got in, he had the chance to deal with the trade issue before he triggered the election. Instead, he triggered the election and went into hardcore anti-American mode, and that has actually damaged Canada's ability to now go while other countries are trying to negotiate to the U.S. and say, hey, can we have some sort of off-ramp here because we're such two closely entwined economies? Can Canada get an auto or steel and aluminum exemption? We could have been doing that, but Carney has put himself in a position where he even told Trump, I'm not going to talk to you until after the federal election is over. So we're between a rock and a hard place. Every country is getting in to negotiate before. We kicked them in the face for no reason. Carney's been kicking Trump in the face every single day on the campaign trail. But it turns out we're still Canada, and we can't exactly push the Americans around on this one. Would have been far smarter to have engaged in actual serious negotiations with the U.S., even if we don't agree with every point they were making, increase border security, crack down on fentanyl in our country, which we should already be doing anyways. And then we can talk seriously about trying to get some sort of exemption on steel and aluminum tariffs or auto tariffs when they were implemented. Instead, we basically acted as Chinese allies rather than American allies. Anyways, I want to move on to another story. That's it for that one. I want to jump over again to the TikTok left, who is convinced that they have another kill shot on Pierre Poilievre, and that is he is like Donald Trump because he is tough on crime. This is not going to play as well as these people think.
Pierre Poilievre's new policy announcement is literally what Trump did. This is literally what Trump did. He wants to replace the court.
What is literally what Trump did? It says conservatives pledge to appoint, I think it says strict judges, basically to crack down on to be more tough on crime. And he is trying to paint this as a bad thing because that's what Trump did.
With new judges that are stricter or more conservative. He wants to politicize the courts. With the unpolitical courts that we have in Canada, he wants to politicize them. He wants to do what Trump did. He literally wants to do what Trump did. He can't help himself but continue to associate himself with MAGA and MAGA identity and MAGA politics. And there are ways to talk about this without like going insane, because yeah, a lot of the catch and release style things aren't liberal policies. This is coming.
They're very liberal policies. In fact, they are progressive policies
From the courts, because we have a pretty rock solid charter of rights and freedoms. And that also means that people have the right to due process and they have the right to be treated equally and fairly under the justice system. And maybe we need to reevaluate what that means. But we don't do that by taking over the courts and appointing people who are ideologically the same as us. That is completely inappropriate.
That is completely inappropriate, Frank. What is this over here? What is this? What's this article? What's this thing I'm about to pull up on screen? It's probably not something that's going to contradict Frank, because his point was absolutely rock solid. He understands the goings on in Canadian politics. What is this National Post headline? Trudeau's Law Society. Exclusive data analysis reveal Liberals appoint judges who are party donors. What's that all about? It's probably a big coincidence. This is probably an 11-minute read because there's nothing in it. And it's not that the Liberals are deeply corrupt. And they're not just appointing people who are ideologically liberal, but they are appointing people who are ideologically liberal who give thousands of dollars over time to the Liberal Party of Canada. The courts are already politicized. And do you know what is not actually politicizing the courts? It is putting in place judges who will enforce the law. If that is considered political, and basically everything is political. But the left will always tell you that everything is political, and yet everything's only ever political when the right does it. Make it make sense, but I'm not going to attempt to do that because I want my brain to not break in two. Let's jump over to this other video of another person on the sort of left-wing content creator circuit having another freak out about Pierre Poilievre. This is their entire campaign. It's freaking out about Trump, and then it's freaking out about Pierre Poilievre with no real policy points. These are the same people who laugh when Mark Carney gets rid of the carbon tax because it hurts the Conservative campaign. At the same time, they won't really reason through why they are cool with getting rid of it. At the same time, they were mocking Conservatives for so long for saying that we should get rid of it.
We heard this week from, I love this part, from Ford's top campaign guy, that he dropped so many F-bombs about Poilievre and how he screwed up a 20-point lead and how it's campaign mismanagement or malpractice. But then he took it even further on CTV when he said, and I quote, "They're petrified of a Poilievre government." Petrified of Poilievre. If you want to just create a hashtag for the way the country feels about Poilievre's MAGA, then that's it.
Guys, take your lithium out there. If you need your lithium, take your lithium. Corey Tenike is an idiot. Doug Ford is also an idiot. Doug Ford's also not conservative. He runs the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, but it would be more accurate if that party just started calling itself the Progressive Party of Ontario, because they've done nothing conservative in their entire tenure in office since 2018. I feel most bad for the few actual conservatives that exist in that party who are sitting MPPs who can't really say and do anything and are having their reputations absolutely trashed by the fact that they're willing to follow this idiot Doug Ford around, cut no taxes, do nothing conservative, do nothing pro-parental rights, don't actually reform the curriculum, don't cut wasteful spending, don't do any of this stuff. And yet they still have to stand up and pretend this is all conservative. Sam Oosterhoff, my goodness, I wouldn't want to be Sam Oosterhoff. I keep having people, especially a few years ago, tell me, oh, that guy's such a young rock star in Canadian politics. Is he? Is he? He seems like kind of just a coward to me at this point. He won't stand up to Ford. He won't do anything conservative. And he even had to stand up at one point before the 22 election and report out positively about an NDP bill to add anti-racism curriculum to the Ontario curriculum for people in like middle school and high school. Yeah, Sam Oosterhoff, political rock star right there for the Conservatives. But the entire thing, people pretending like Corey Tenike is telling us that, oh, the Poilievre Conservatives are falling apart because they're not doing the strategy we used in Ontario. Do you know why Doug Ford won the 2025 election so handily? Because his opponents suck. Doug Ford is the best beneficiary of bad opponents. The man has had to take on Kathleen Wynne, Andrea Horwath, which was Andrea Horwath's second election. He had to then take on Andrea Horwath again in 22 and Stephen Del Duca. And now in 2025, he took on a Bonnie Henry campaign that was completely comatose, and Merritt Stiles, who looked like the long-lost sister of Bonnie Henry running the NDP. And then I guess Mike Schreiner's in there. He has the best opponents to be running against if you always want to be able to win re-election. And Doug Ford hasn't done anything. He just inherits a lot of liberal voters who don't like the liberal options on the ballot because they're incompetent, and Doug Ford's already doing everything they want, so what's the point of voting for the Liberals? It's always hilarious to me when I see people, especially like Frank Dominic from the first video, talking about how much of a disaster Doug Ford is, while he implements policies that those same people are apparently in favor of on a national level. So when Ford does it, they don't like it because he's the PC guy. But if the Liberals propose effectively the same thing, he's totally okay with it. Anyways, okay. That should be it for me for this video, guys. I'll probably be back later. There's this crazy video of Liberal operatives trying to plant campaign buttons that make the Conservatives seem very MAGA at their conferences, and it's totally backfired. They were exposed, and I think it tells you something about the Liberal campaign. Like I was saying, the entire campaign is Trump is scary and evil, so Poilievre is scary and evil. There's no actual policy going on here. Anyways, so that should be it for me today, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I'll see you later.